You mentioned Jeff Zucker had a hand in sending you to Kosovo. Do you want to
Right. So
tell us?
Jeff became very influential in my career. Not only did he pick me for the Today Show, he encouraged me in how I grew and what I did for the Today Show. And then I remember, as a news anchor covering Bosnia and fighting to get those stories on, the New York Times was doing a really great story, was doing really great work on Bosnia. And I remember reading the story about how women who had been raped in the war in Bosnia, as a way of forcing them to have children by people of a different group. How it resonated with me as a story that crossed the line, a story that had to be covered. And I realized how were woefully undercovering this story, which was now not just a war, it was now genocide. I marched into Jeff Zucker's office and I said, I would say, I have to be careful. I'm moving into a news executive's office. I would say I stepped boldly into a news executive's office. I wouldn't say I marched, but I stepped boldly into Jeff Zucker's office and I said, Jeff, I don't think we did enough in Bosnia. I think we need to now do more in Kosovo, because the war was now moving into Kosovo. He said, okay. I said, no, Jeff, this is genocide. He said, I said, Jeff, you're Jewish.
Right.
Seriously? How can you not cover this story? Boy, the look on his face. He was so angry with me. I thought, okay, I gotta now back out. I backed out. I went across the street. I had to buy my daughter at a store a dress for Easter. I'm standing in line waiting to pay for my daughter's Easter dress, which is a big deal in our family, and Easter. And my BlackBerry, at the time it was a BlackBerry, went off, and it was Jeff. He said, hey, Curry, you're right. We should go to Kosovo. I said, yep, you should do it. We should send some correspondence. No. We're not sending correspondence. We're sending you. I said, how soon? He said, I need you to leave tonight.
Wow.
So I went home and I said to my children, I won't be there for Easter, which of course caused my daughter to break into tears and sob, and because Easter was a big deal in our family. And I packed a big backpack and grabbed a producer and I flew into that zone. And we went live every day for about a week. And I remember we were going live from a riverbank where people in city clothes, having fled to safety, were washing their clothes in the water, in the river, and sobbing. And then eventually we ended up in Macedonia, where people were forced to stay in this one area because the Macedonians didn't want them to come into their country and change the makeup of their country, so they kept them in this one area. They were traumatized, having lost the men in their family, their boys, their sons. They didn't have milk for their babies. They didn't have shelter. It was raining. It was really terrible. And we snuck onto their camp and with a cameraman on the hill, because I couldn't bring the cameraman into the camp. At gunpoint, they just assumed that I was a refugee worker, so they let me in. I didn't identify myself as a reporter, but I didn't dissuade them either, didn't lie either. And we were able to do some pretty good reporting. What I feel really good about is the following week, CBS was out there for a week. And the following week, ABC was out there for a week. And what I found out later is that the reason why Jeff probably decided to send me to Kosovo was because he didn't have anything scheduled that week that was really popping. And he probably also felt like they should do it as well. So that those two things combined, he decided to send me. Because it was dramatic, it was big. And I remember him saying to me in my ear, because he understood every morning how important it was, he would give me only a certain amount of time, but he would maximize the effectiveness of it. He'd put it on pretty early. And he set the stage for the other networks to follow suit. And by the time I left that area, we knew the world had awakened. Not because of us, but because we were part of the New York Times and everybody else. The world had awakened, and Clinton, President Clinton, was making an arrangement with other world powers to do something about the war in Kosovo. And they threatened Milosevic, who was the head, of course, of the government in Yugoslavia, and said, we will bomb all the way to Belgrade if you don't stop your paramilitary Serbs from killing these Albanian people. And he eventually stopped. And I believe, I don't know if there is any other information that might make this erroneous, but it's believed that this is the first time, and maybe the only time, in world history when genocide was stopped by the outside world. And I will always be proud of just my little part in that. And that is the power of journalism. That's the power of informing people. Because politicians never do this kind of thing in a vacuum. They do it because their people are outraged, because they have the political capital to do it. Right. And they don't have the political capital to do anything they don't have the political capital to do things like that unless their people are informed and are behind them. You know, unless they can get them behind them, or unless the way has been paved. And so I'm very proud of that, my little part, and all of us who are part of that.
Other than just bearing witness and being there, the first news anchor with a camera, what did you witness when you were there that was important for you to convey back to the American viewing audience?
That crimes against, it was important to me to convey that crimes against humanity were occurring. Mm-hmm. Outrages that any human being would not tolerate. And I think, you know, it is not easy to put vast human suffering on morning television. But I was really proud of us for doing that. And I've learned that our capacity to care about others in places that we barely can find on a map is pretty enormous. Mm. I've come to think that it's part of how we're made. We care that our species survives. We care when members of our human family suffer injustice. We care. Yeah. And there's a reason for that. And it helps support why we should do more of this kind of journalism.